Reverend Crystal Cox here. I went to the movie tonight called Spotlight, and it is about the journalists who broke the story of the Catholic priest's epidemic of child molestation. Now, the Catholic Church has been doing this since the beginning of time. It is something that is coming to light in a big way right now. It's 2015. I think that the show was, it was right after 9/11. Anyway, you'll have to check out the movie Spotlight. And I just want to say that there's nothing more powerful to a victim than having a voice. Telling their story in a place that it can be found, such as a blog or a newspaper, it gives them their life back. It saves their soul. It saves their state of mind. It saves them from suicide, from drug abuse, from all the things that make people kind of lose their center. Go crazy, I guess. I hate that word, but I mean really lose track of where they are in this plane of things. Now, in the movie, it was about Boston. It was the Boston Globe, and there was like 90 priests there. So, like 1,500 victims or more. After they ran the story, the phones rang off the hook with more victims. And we've now, heard lots more about it. There's lots of lawsuits that have come up. The Catholic Church has sold lots of buildings. And it's really amazing what the light can do to the dark. You turn on the light in a room that bad things have been happening for decades, centuries. And all of a sudden, just in someone seeing it happening, it begins to heal. But we're nowhere near the end of that, of course. I'm going to tell you another story. I don't know if you've seen in the news in the last 6 months about an army soldier in Afghanistan who stood up against American allies, connected with American allies helping with the fight in Syria. He had stood up because their allies were molesting young boys, and he was thrown out of the military. Now, this moral courage was amazing. He was made to leave the military. Now, why? Because apparently we are still living in an age where we protect sexual predators. The military men are apparently they're getting some sort of drug from Saudi Arabia too. I don't know. That's just a side note, but they're like monsters. They're this insatiable being, and they're having sex with children, and an American soldier stands up against them, and he is thrown out of the military. That is a representation of what's going on in the world that is needing cleansed. Okay, this is a very huge topic, right? So the Catholic Church being exposed is a good thing. However, there's a bigger issue. Okay, so you're paying attention to how the kids are groomed, who the kids are, who are they doing it to. If you don't, it's a case of, you don't control your own mind, someone else controls your mind. If you aren't communicating with your children and you aren't talking about this stuff because you might think that it's not time, someone else will, okay? If you're not paying attention to them, someone else is grooming them, okay? Now, a lot of these cases were parents who had lost one, there were kids who lost one or both parents, coming from, financial issues, death in the family, some sort of traumatic thing, and it was just a real glory to have the priest like them, right? And so we kind of all know the story. What was interesting in the movie about people, starting to come forward that had protected them forever because, they feared their lives. They feared what the church would do to them, discredit, ruin their lives like they do all of us whistleblowers who expose corruption and give voice to victims of oppression. And it was interesting if they all look around, they're like, you know what? We've all buried this story. We've buried it in the media. We've buried it in our homes. We've buried it in our hearts. We've buried it in our cemeteries. We have let it happen over and over and over. And not only do we just simply brush it under the rug, okay? So we might pull the predator away from the victim, then they have other victims, right? But still as a society, we're not acknowledging that it happened and it was wrong and moving on. We're still having family dinner with the child molesters, okay? So it isn't just the Catholic Church, okay? This is everywhere. Now, the power and the money and the greed of the Catholic Church it is a big deal, okay? The energy that they're taking from these children, the protection that they were giving these children. Now, we know that this is also in the Mormon Church. It is said to be in the Jehovah's Witness Church. It is everywhere, okay? So what it is about is transparency and accountability, okay? We expose the people. We give voice to the victims. We acknowledge that it happened and we don't condone it. And we don't let them be around other children to create more victims. I'm told that in Washington State, where I live, that there is a prison just for pedophiles. I know family members personally who still invite child molesters in the family to dinner. They can't seem to face it, or they think, well, yeah, that's just something bad that he did, but, he's human, we're going to take care of him, whatever, without ever acknowledging the victim. So, like, if the bad guy, let's call him, is older, okay, so he's one of the brothers, so he'll be coming to the dinner, he'll be at all the functions, so any of his victims, you can come or not, right? Whereas all the victims then lose family. Okay, so you speak out in churches like, say, I think it's Mormon and the Jehovah's Witnesses, where if you speak out against certain things or do certain things, you're shunned. So the Catholic Church issue, they were saying that, okay, well, their friends didn't want them to tell. The church didn't want them to tell. The community didn't want them to tell. They were threatened. They were harassed. And this is a huge epidemic, right? Now, I remember within the last few years talking to someone pretty close to me and my family, not close to me and my family, but close to me in my family, about having sex with children in reference to being something that God doesn't like. I am told that God's law is in the Bible, right? And that the Bible does not say anything about it being a sin to have sex with children. Now, I'm a lesbian, and according to these same people and religions, being a lesbian is a sin, equal to murder, actually, because all sin is equal. I have an uncle, well, on both sides of my family, and many others, but one that in particular that is passed away. He had molested his children, and in the movie it was interesting where they made him clarify, okay, what kind of molestation? Is he just grabbing you? I mean, they were raping them. They were getting hand jobs, getting blow jobs. They were raping these children, okay? And this is what my uncle was doing. And not only did he do that, but then he got other kids years later that they'd inherited because someone in the family died, molested them. Now, people in the family knew, and it was so horrific to them, they blocked it out. So they didn't protect the children. Okay, so they say under their belief system that this person will be resurrected in Armageddon, as they call it, because he didn't know he was sinning. Okay, so he went to, church for however decades, on and off. He didn't know it was a sin. And I said, how did he not know it was a sin? Well, he didn't know it was a sin because he kept doing it. Makes no sense at all. But this is, a close family member, and this is really, really what she believes. So she believes that Me loving someone of the same sex is a sin. But this person in the family molesting, raping children is not, because it doesn't say in the Bible that you can't have sex with children. Now, I've since tried to find some sort of biblical law just to make a point. I haven't really been able to find anything. So then it leads you to what? I mean, the Bible is the law to these people. What about their conscience? What about knowing what is right? And these institutions, men are still, the head of the church. Men are the ones that can preach. Okay, and they're the authority. And when you bring to them these sexual molestation cases, they protect the molester because they don't want the church to get a bad name. But that ain't the only reason they protect him. They protect him because this sexual energy is something that feeds the church. A lot of these churches, the Catholic Church, were built on ley lines and these powerful energetic lines, and sex with children, kind of like a fairy tale, sort of a horror story of sucking their life force, sucking their souls, having control over them for your entire life. So as many as and some of them actually thinking that it was a good thing for the child. They're grooming them. They're doing a good thing. They were groomed. They're grooming the children. They look at it as something spiritual that they're supposed to do. Okay, so I cried quite a bit during the movie because, it's a very intense topic. Because, yeah, it was great that it came out in the newspaper and it's out there, but we're still doing it. I mean, look at this Jared, the Subway guy, was just indicted for sexually molesting children, right? And what he told the undercover person who was investigating him for years about how he groomed the children, I mean, it's easy. He was talking about how easy it is. Well, yeah. People, parents that don't pay attention to their children, it's easy for their children to be molested. Okay, parents who don't teach their children, they can say no. Teach their children that they have to say, hug their uncle goodbye, whether they want to or not. Parents are not teaching their children to trust their intuition, to have the power to say no to an adult. Talking to them about sex, at a very young age. It is shocking to me when I see some kids below the age of 5, in a sexual energy or acting sexual. They're doing that for a reason. But the parents, I'm like, well, maybe you should visit with them. No, they don't want to visit with them about anything sexual because it's not appropriate, it's not time. Okay, but somebody's having something sexual with them. Oh, well, we don't know that, right? So they just basically shut me down. So they might go to events, ball games, parties, whatever, and they're with family, friends, right? But these men, women molest children too, definitely. But these men in these stories, they groom the children by grooming the family. They're soccer coaches. They're part of the family. They're, part of the parade. They're part of the play. They're not just this, stranger danger. Okay, you have to teach your children to be able to say no, but also, I just can't imagine just being okay with your children doing something with a soccer coach or playing with some man and never ever checking on them, never being part of it, never don't paying attention to your children. I mean, to me, that would be just the closest thing to me because I would actually enjoy my children and want to be around them, and I just wouldn't, I'd rather be playing with the children and and if I was at some sort of event, I'd definitely be checking on them all the time. I'm not saying that it wouldn't happen to me, okay? But I'm saying that it is not about turning away from God, okay? It is about turning to God, the God within. Teaching your children how to talk to angels, how to talk to their spirit guides, how to pray for help. Teaching them their intuition and knowing what is right and what is wrong and being able to say no to adults and not forcing them to just do what you tell them to do because you tell them to do it. Okay? It is time now to teach your child about trusting their own intuition, about having a good connection with spirit, whatever it is within your belief system. And if you don't have any sort of belief system, have them talk to angels. Tell your angels at night, because if they can't tell you, tell them to pray to their angels and ask their angels for help in being able to tell the parent something. Or tell the angels they want help, because we live in a free will world. And it doesn't matter if you're 2 years old or 100 years old. You have to ask. You have to ask for help to get help. Our children need to know how to know themselves and have permission to be in their power. You can't be with them all the time. Okay? Talk to them real. Help them to have a spiritual connection, to be able to bring in the light, to show the dark and to protect them, because you can't always be there. I recommend you see the movie Spotlight, and I also recommend that you start standing up to people in your family, saying, you know what? To your brother or whatever, hey, you know what? I love you. If you choose to still love your brother, he's 40, 50, 60s, but he's a child molester or he has been in the past, go see him separate. Don't bring him to family events. Stop the cycle. It's never too late to just stop. I know family members right now that continue to do this. And they don't acknowledge what he did, and therefore the victims have no voice. They have no validity. They have no power, and no matter what age they are. When you believe them, when you can face it, whether you break down and crying or whatever you have to do to face the horrific things that happen to the children in your lives, even if they're in their 20s now, 30s, 40s, 50s, once you face it, everybody's healed. Past lives, forward lives, we're facing it, we're healing it, we're moving through. And also the power of being the media. Okay? Having a blog in this day and age and giving someone a voice and proving that bad, evil things are happening to them, and that judges and cops and courts and mayors and commissioners and police are covering these things up, giving them a voice, is saving their soul and is doing the work of the Holy Spirit. God has blessed you all.